G'day, Pat Callanan here, and welcome to the first ever Super Cheap Auto Bush Mechanic Challenge. Well, the story goes something like this. We take two four-wheel drives that we can't spend any more than $2 on buying, and we take them on a 7-day torture test. First of all, we're going to jump into Super Cheap Auto and grab ourselves a bag of tricks that will hopefully keep these vehicles on the road for our test. Now, the winner of this challenge won't just get fame and glory, my friends. They will get what I like to call the Manky Manifold. This is the trophy for the winner. Now, half the battle here will be the selection of the vehicles. Personally, I've chosen myself a 1984 3.5 litre V8 Range Rover. Pretty straight and hopefully reliable enough to get me through this challenge. But I am dying to see what our mate Ruthie is going to turn up in. G'day mate, good to see you.
How are you, Pat? Good
Great,
to see
mate.
you.
Mate, what is this? You bought yourself a bloody Datsun. Where's the Toyota?
You said $2 Pat. I mean, I had to hitchhike a long way to buy this thing. And I'll tell you what, you can't get a Toyota for under $2. Not a decent one. I had to buy rubbish. I mean, Datsun. But anyway, she's all right. What have you got though?
Mate,
look at this.
Beautiful 1984 Rangie, V8, coil springs. What more could you want? I mean, over here you've got leaf springs. I mean, have you got power steering in this thing?
No, I haven't got anything I don't need, but I mean, you know, it's strong, it's tough. You've gone on board, so we're going to spend the next week fixing this piece of rubbish for sure.
Mate, I don't think so. I think at the end of it, the Manky Manifold, the glorious trophy, will be sitting on the bonnet of the Rangie.
Yeah, along with most of the rest of the engine too, probably, and the other bits. I'll tell you what, Pat, I think we better get into Super Cheap and get you some bits and pieces, because you're going to need them.
I think you might need some too, mate. Let's
Not
go.
with the beast, mate.
What I reckon I'm going to be pulling Ruthie out of bogs all through the week, so better grab a snatch strap, eh? A few other things I've got in my kit, all top secret mind you. Got a little bit of a crimping kit here for any electrical problems I might have with the Rangie. What have I got here? Gas tank and radiator repair kit. Well, in case we puncture the radiator, or I can actually smell a little bit of juice leaking out of that Range Rover, so this might come in handy. And then there's the good old bush mechanic's friend, cable ties. Can't beat them.
Oh, look at this, a whole wall of air fresheners. And here's one that'd suit Pat, I reckon. I mean, it's not that his truck smells, but he sure does. Looks a bit like him too, don't you reckon?
What do you think, folks? Not bad, eh? They had $3 on it, but I beat them down to 2. I think it's not a bad thing though. I mean, you have a look at the carpets, you have a look at the upholstery. She's a pretty neat looking vehicle, and I think it's been looked after. Now, why did I go for the Rangie? Well, for $2 you get a lot of car for your money. This thing has central locking, it's got power steering, it's got air conditioning, it's even got cruise control. But obviously this is an off-road torture test, so I wanted to make sure that I had a reasonably capable truck. This thing has beam axles and coil springs all round, so she should walk over the obstacles fairly well. My concerns though are under here. There's plenty of problems, a lot of people know about them. I mean, there's plenty of jokes about Range Rovers. They're electrics, they're by Lucas, the Prince of Darkness. The only reason they don't rust is because they've got so many damn oil leaks, and that is going to be a problem here. You look under the bonnet and it looks dead set like spaghetti. You compare that to the Nissan next door, which is just beautifully laid out and very, very simple. If this car comes unstuck, I reckon it's going to be here or possibly in the weak axles, but if it can just hold up for the 7 days of torture, I think I'll be right.
Well, Pat's got his corgi crusher. Oh boy, I think we need a trailer really. But if we do need to trailer it out, we've got something decent to pull it with. I picked up this Patrol for $2. Really, I had to beg the guy to take $2 for it. He only wanted $1,500. It's got a bit of rust and whatnot. It's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit scrappy in places. But I climbed underneath, and she's basically pretty solid. The gearbox has got a lot of fresh sealant around it. It's just been done over fairly recently, which is why the clutch and gearbox feels good. It's got the mighty 2.8 motor in it. You know, not a lot of power, but hey, it won't wreck this.
just in case that Nissan gets a little bit lucky. Of course, we're not alone on this journey. Representing ARB is Lowmount Lowry, and he'll be driving the mighty 78 Series recovery truck. Piloting the ARB Bush Limousine 100 Series is Paul Taboni, owner of Adventure Camper Trailers, and he'll give us the goss on his Butte camper trailer later on. In the Mickey Thompson Navara, we've got tyre gurus Brad Smith, Mark Pullen and Brett Quadling. And capturing the great photos for 4 Wheel Drive Monthly is Off-Road Images Michael Ellum. From Super Cheap Auto, we headed across town to ARB headquarters to give the 4 Wheel Drives a minor service and to bolt on some new rubber. We wanted to give the old bangers their best chance to succeed over the next 7 days. Now under here, this is where we find the real clues as to how these trucks are going to hold up over the next 7 days. Looking under here, we've got a pitman arm seal that's leaking, power steering's leaking. Moving along here, there's a little bit of play in the uni joint. If we just push that, it's got some play there. A few leaks around the transfer, nothing much to worry about. And up here on the pinion seal is a little bit of a concern, but no major worry.
Unusual things in this vehicle include the side steps, which have been welded onto the chassis. Now, that's not a real smart idea. I don't think we're going to have any problems with it because the old Patrols have got a terrific chassis. But where the welding's been done, of course, is right next to the rear axle spring hanger and the front axle spring hanger. So, you know, really, in terms of what can you do to screw up a chassis, apart from dropping it out of a plane or something, that's pretty good. You could weld on it. That's good. I figure what's happened here is that at some stage one of the last owners has adjusted the wheel bearings and forgotten to do the locking ring in between the 2 nuts. It looked to me as if it had been well and truly hammered over one side but not over the other. This is Mark, he's the foreman here at ARB at Moorebank, and he's seen a hell of a lot of these things. I suppose you've seen this in the past too, haven't you?
Have, mate, sure.
Okay. Well look, I'll tell you what, I'm glad that we pulled it to bits here. I mean, apart from the fact it might have fallen off, because the other thing is, when we pulled the locking hub off, there was a wood screw rammed down one of the holes, which wasn't doing anything at all, and there was 3 of the screws missing altogether. Now these are a really weird sort of tapered long screw. We're not going to find those out in the bush, I know that for sure. Yeah. You got any of these, Mark?
Sure do, mate.
Oh, you're the man. Good on you. It's got some spares. I'll need them probably with this thing. When they said you can pick whatever tyres you want to stick on your $2,000 bomb, I went straight for Mickey Thompson's new MTZs. I've had a lot of luck, as you probably know, with Mickey Thompson's MTXs on Milo. They've been fantastic. They've done thousands of Ks through some of the harshest conditions in Australia, and no problems at all. Now, a lot of that has got to do with the fact that American tyres really are the best tyres in the world. They're a lot firmer in the side. They offer a lot more tread depth, you find, than most tyres. The MTZ is sort of a 70% serious off-road tyre, you know, so it's a real man's tyre to start with. Sort of thing you should stick on a Toyota, but it'll do on a Dado. They've got sipes inside the blocks, which means they don't sort of chip and fall to bits. And I know that from experience, you know, having seen the way my other tyres, my other Mickey Thompson tyres have performed before. They've got a really good block pattern. They've got the sort of rock ejectors that you want to see, because without that kind of technology, rocks get stuck in their jam. I don't want to be mucking around with punctures. There's going to be enough things to fix on Pat's truck without worrying about the tyres on mine. One of the other things I like about the MTZ is the seriousness of the sidewall construction. This kind of blocky pattern that was a Mickey Thompson innovation. I mean, they've been leading the field in tyres since about 1960, I think. It's one of their innovations to stick a sort of a good stiff paddle on the side of a firm sidewall. It gives you lots of grip to climb. Now, I guess I've gone for a lot more traction than Pat, because this thing with its leaf springs is probably not going to have wheels on the ground quite as much as him. But fair dinkum, these are a really good looking tyre. I know they're going to perform. I can't wait actually to give them a good try in the mud, because that's what they are, a serious mud tyre. But from experience, I know they'll handle that bit on the road too. I wonder what Pat's put on though. Be some sort of girly thing, no doubt.
Well, I thought long and hard when it came to selecting the rubber for the Rangie, and I thought, well, she's got plenty of wheel travel, bucket loads more than that Dado over there. So I didn't need so much traction, and I mean this is a beautiful road car as well, so I thought why not complement that. And also, given the fact that it's got bucket loads of power with that V8, I didn't want to dig holes in the sand, so I went for more of an all-terrain tread. I've chosen the Mickey Thompson Baja ATZ, and it really is a nice all-round tyre. It's got great on-road performance and is pretty good on the dirt as well. So it's got these rounded sidewalls, which really make it steer better on-road, and also steers better in that high-speed sand that we could come up against. From ARB we took the scenic route west over the beautiful Blue Mountains. Well, there's a reason I reckon why the Royals like these Range Rovers, and that's because they really are genuinely quite a good on-road vehicle. They've got a lovely ride and they generally handle pretty well. Sure, they've got a fair whack of body roll, but as long as you don't push them too hard around the corners, they tend to hold on okay. When we first picked up this truck, the steering though was pretty damn horrible. Had a massive amount of play and a really big dead spot in the centre of the steering, so you'd have to steer it probably a good 4 or 5 inches before it had actually turned left or right. But we had it up on the hoist there at ARB, tightened up the pitman arm, and that solved that problem beautifully. So that, coupled with the new Mickey Thompson ATZs, and the vehicle now steers pretty much like it would as new.
Windscreen wipers work okay. It's even got a washer of sorts. I don't know what's in it. It could be Kero. It looks a bit greasy. Rattles, yes, lots of those. Rust holes in the floor, yes, a couple of those. The mirrors work quite well. Hey, that's an advantage, isn't it? There's no aircon, there's no nothing. I've got to admit, I'm kind of enjoying driving it.
From the Bells line of road, we jumped onto the first dirt we could find at the Zigzag Railway. We are in the beautiful Blue Mountains, folks, just 10 minutes off the bitumen and already we're into it. A good little excuse to lock the trucks into low range for the very first time. And the beauty of these tracks in the mountains is that there's always an option as to how hard you want to drive. You've got these awesome, nice, easy, pretty tracks on one side, and then down here you've got something just a little bit more challenging. I reckon this will challenge the older vehicles. I don't know about the ARB ones though. With those lockers I reckon they'll drive straight through, but we'll see. We're dumping the tyre pressures now, so let's get into it.
That's it. Oh, well done, mate. You've let park your car back there. Well done.
Take the hard line.
I don't have any lines.
Well, with its air locker switched on, the ARB 100 series walked through easily, and the Adventure Camper showed that it's as rugged as they come to.
This is a bit weird. Haven't had this happen to me ever, actually. And I've owned a few rust buckets in my time. Just driving along that track back there, and all of a sudden there was rather a loud kapunch sort of noise, and this stick has shot up through the floor. It's quite a sharp little number. It's come straight through the rust hole. But I'm really glad no one was sitting there, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't on this side too, because it could have quite easily speared you through the back of the leg. Now, I'm not saying that that's the sort of thing you'd normally expect, because it's not. I haven't seen that happen before, but I guess it's something to think about, isn't it? You know, maybe avoid those sticks.
Well, it's testing times here for the Bush Mechanic Challenge, folks, and this is going to be a timed obstacle course. We've got soft sand, we've got mud, and Low-Mount behind me, he's going to be looking after the stopwatch. So it's going to be interesting. I think the Rangie might have the power over the old Datsun, but we'll see. I thought I'd give it a go first, but got swallowed by the mud. Now it's time for Ruthie. Hang on, he's not allowed to do that. I can sense a rematch coming on. Goes Ruthie for his second run. Oh, he's gone deep this time, but he's looking quick. It's going to be tough to beat. Because I took that much tougher line in that obstacle course, Rangie.
What, when you missteered there and sort of missed it? You know,
No.
Doesn't steer very well, does it?
I didn't run over the witch's hat, mate. I think that was you.
You moved it on me, mate. You moved it on me.
So what we've got here is a bonnet lining that is like a sponge, and it's filled up with water, and you can see it's just sagging down on the high tension leads there.
There's a lot of sagging going on in this car, I would have thought, yeah.
The back end too. Yeah, you're doing a bit yourself, mate.
Yeah, I know.
So I think if we take that out, give her a bit of a squirt under the dizzy.
57 seconds.
Whee! It's falling apart already.
You want some more bits of Range Rover?
Saves on weight too, mate, now. Can't be beaten.
Oh, righto. Go and beat 57 seconds then, mate.
Done. Oops. That's another thing that doesn't work quite. I gotta push the donger in. That's it, now it'll do it.
Sounds good, Pat.
Fix that.
See that little notch there? That has to sit into this groove. And until you can feel that nice and tight, the distributor isn't on right. The distributor cap isn't on right. It's simple, but on these things, it's really easy to get it wrong. Geez, it better start now, eh?
I'll give it a tweak.
Give it a go, mate, or we'll be in trouble. Okay, stand back, everyone. We could explode. Stuffed, Pat. 57 seconds to beat, he hasn't got a chance. Not with it running like that.
There goes the hat. How'd I go, mate?
Mate, you better get your money back. 1 minute 49.
Hang on a minute.
No.
Who's holding the clock here, mate?
49 seconds, mate, thanks to my brilliant tuning effort on this piece of Tommy rubbish.
I think it was the payouts. I think the landie got angry, mate.
I'll tell you what, it went pretty good, didn't it, eh?
No, I was happy with it. I was amazed. I thought I was going to bury it in that mud, and the old Mickey T all-terrains just plugged it through.
They did, didn't they? That and the WD-40, I think, did a bit too.
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't have spoken so soon. The Rangie's first real problem had started to rear its head. The throttle was starting to stick whenever she got hot.
So everything there. If it gets real bad, we might just pull them apart, have a bit of a play. Boy, it's a fine piece of British machinery, isn't it, eh? Doesn't it make you proud to be part of the empire?
Well, Ruthie, end of day one, mate. What's the damage report?
Oh, mate, the poor old Dano's been stabbed. It's lost a headlight. It's got a wheel that looks like it's going to fall off. The back end's sagging. Yeah, it's going really well, actually. What about the Rangie?
Well, I got the sticky throttle. I got a tailgate. The top of the glass doesn't want to open, so that's basically stuck. What else is happening with it? And we got the water in the dizzy. That's sorted out now. But
yeah, that's not so bad, really, is it? Is that all?
Mate, it is a beautiful piece of English engineering.
Is that right? Well, it seems to me like it's sagging a bit at the rear too.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is.
Oh, you're going to think we planned this, aren't you, eh? Doing repairs in the bottle shop drive-through.
That sticky throttle problem, we sorted it out for about 20 minutes, half an hour yesterday. But as we were driving into Lithgow last night, she kept on going again. Wanted to sit at about 4,000 RPM. So we grabbed probably the most useful accessory of all from Super Cheap with the manuals. We got manuals for both of these vehicles because Ruthie and I, neither of us have actually owned these vehicles in the past. So this thing will come in very handy, and we found that we shouldn't really have sprayed WD-40 down those SUs last night. Just typical engine oil, that's all we needed. So we'll give her a top up today and it should be fine.
Those bolts I got off Mark before we left town were terrific. All four of them have whipped out, no dramas at all. The two old ones are both RS. They went in okay, they're not coming out real good. That's the kind of thing that you hate in the bush, you really do, when you can't get screws out. So it's a good thing we're in the drive-through, eh? Because if I'm still here later in the day, I'm in the right place. I'm ready to go. Actually, I'm ready for the bottle shop to open. Do you think I can find something else wrong with this truck?
This is an awesome spot. This is the Lost City, pretty well known around Sydney, but recently in the last couple of years they've dumped a heap of rocks here, so you can't drive the last couple of 100 metres down there. Never mind.
The tracks around this part of the Blue Mountains are something special, but we had to make a mile. So we headed southwest, past Oberon, and to a favourite camping haunt out the back of Jenolan called Dingo Dell. It's pretty easy to find. Just head towards Canangra Walls and follow the signs.
Well, here we are. It's freezing cold. We're in Dingo Dell. Probably going to rain any minute. But do I care? No, not at all, because I'm in the Adventure Camper kitchen, and this is awesome. This is definitely the best camper kitchen I've used. To begin with, look at the bench height, right where you want it. It's perfect. Now, what are we going to cook tonight? Well, I couldn't really tell you, because the Mickey Thompson guys did the shopping, and you know what rubber blokes are like when it comes to shopping. But we've got a heap of really good tucker. They've done a good job here. What we're going to make is, I haven't really got a name for it yet. We'll think of that later on. Okay, now to kick off, big pot. We don't want to muck around. We're going to do a one-pot meal. We'll fire it off with oil, margarine, whatever. In this case, it's going to be margarine because that's what we've got. I've got some ginger here in a tube. I haven't used ginger in a tube before. Should be good. I've got some garlic in a tube too. What a great idea for camping. You should always buy good meat. Don't waste your money on rubbish. Rubbish meat you pay by the kilo anyway, and it's got all that stuff you got to chop off, and then it's inedible. So he's bought really good meat, but he's bought it chopped up, which is awesome. So we've got chopped up beef. In it goes. Okay, I think we'll just let that beef brown up, which I think is going to take approximately 3 beers.
Ruthie, as we came into Dingo Dell,
Yeah.
Andy, our sound man, mentioned, he commented quite accurately that he thought that he wondered what these square poos were on the ground, and he worked it out that they were wombat
Wombats,
poos.
yeah, definitely.
So I've had a thought, this diced beef here,
Yeah.
we might have ourselves a bit of a wombat poo stew.
Wombat poo stew. All right then, I'll go with that. Yeah. The meat's pretty nicely browned at the moment. In fact, it's bubbled right up. Lots of juice off it, but that's fine because it's mixed up with the garlic and the ginger that we put in. So far we've got garlic, ginger and beef in this pot. And it's not going to feed 9 people. Not out of one pot. So, we'll lob in with the tiny taters. 2 cans of that, drained. This is a soup mix, which has got all sorts of vegetables in. Don't ask me what. Turnips, carrots, stuff like that. I'm not putting onion in, because onion turns our photographer, Mike Ellum, into an absolute beast. So we've got to leave that out. Now, when you've got this much stuff in the pot, you need something to render it down a bit. Render is cook talk for something for it to boil in. So, Heinz big and chunky butter chicken soup. Hey, it's got to be worth a go. Now people say, how come chicken when you're cooking beef? Well, I don't know, but it works. Let's put it in. Can of mushrooms, sliced mushrooms in butter sauce. Yep, no one's losing weight on this trip, I can tell you. Oh, look at this, peas and corn. Why not? Bit of barbecue sauce, just for now. Oh, why not a can of corn? Hey, lots of corn. Give all that a bit of a stir. I looked everywhere for liquid. I didn't actually. Normally when I make stew I make it with beer, but the Adventure camper trailer comes from South Australia, and in South Australia they're a little bit more, shall we say, hoity-toity than us. So it just so happens that Paul had a flask of red wine. Now it's a bit new for me using red wine, but hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Let's go. Big shot of the old red. I've heard that if you boil it long enough it loses its alcoholic content, so we won't boil it too long. I think we'll just leave that there for a minute before we add the final flavours. We'll let all that sort of cook through a little bit. 2 beers. Okay, be back in a minute. Oh, we're up to stage 3 of the wombat poo stew, and it's looking pretty good. Let's give it a bit of a stir. How you going there, Paul?
Buttering away, mate. Buttering
Good
away.
stuff, mate. Got Paul from Adventure Campers on the bread and butter stuff here. Really good. On the knife. We've got to put curry powder in. Why? Because it's cold. Gee, I think 2 of those should do. Sweet chilli. I think it's mild. Doesn't say hot. Jam. I stick jam in everything. You know why? No, I don't. But it tastes good. We'll put some jam in. Actually, it's the sugar content as much as anything. Because jam tastes good, whatever you cook with jam will taste good. Does that make sense? And the mystery ingredient. Now, I found these behind Pat's seat over there in Camilla, the Range Rover. I know he's trying to keep them to himself, you know, big bag of cashews, but mate, I think we'll put these in the wombat poo stew. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I got to point out one more thing about this Adventure camper. I mean, I'm not doing this because you're here, mate. Honestly, but I love the way these surfaces are all laminated. Now that means you can clean them really easily.
Hey Ruthie,
Yes,
who
mate.
stole Camilla's nuts?
As always, the secret to good cooking is let your victims drink lots of this before you serve it. We'll come back in a minute and dish this out and see what it's like.
VB victim bitter.
Victim bitter, I like it. Right, you guys ready? You look like you're ready. Look
very
at
well,
this.
really ready.
Wombat poo stew, let's go. You got some bread there,
There's your
Paul?
weapons, there's your bread.
Beauty. Right. Let's give it a go. You're going to be test guinea pig, Pat. Good on you, mate. You've survived a couple of my meals in the past. See how
Thanks,
you
mate.
go with this one.
Good on you,
Thank you, Mark. No worries, mate. We'll see what happens here, eh? It was a good day, hey? We did well today. We survived.
We had a bit of a fun run into Dingo Dell last night. Been raining all day, very slippery steep hills that we were sliding down, and the Rangie threw another thing into it. Throttle seems to be getting stuck some way. It could be the carbie. That's sort of what we're thinking at the moment, because these are fairly dicky little things at the best of times. But yeah, it wasn't real fun coming down that hill last night, because I was stuck at about 3,500 RPM when I wanted to be at about 800. So what are we going to do, Ruthie? We'll get the old carbie cleaner in there.
Well, you know, the problem with these SUs is that the slide comes up and down depending on the velocity of the air coming in, which you control with a butterfly further down there. So that slide is on a really light spring, obviously, and I think that's what's going on. I think the slides are going up and not coming down.
Yep.
Which is pretty much where you would have been yesterday, I reckon, going straight over the edge instead of coming down. But first thing we're going to try is the simplest. You should always do that, and that's just to pull off the main fuel feed line here, fill it up with carbie cleaner, which is going to go through the bowls, in theory, and in theory it should maybe loosen things up a little bit, let those slides drop down. We'll try that. If it doesn't work, we'll have to pull the tops off and give it a good old scrub, I guess. Because you've got to watch these things, really watch these fittings. Now, in theory, when we kick this over, we should have fuel charging out of here. So, a recovery bottle.
Well, it doesn't get much more flammable than dangerous, I suppose, under the bonnet than this. We're playing with fuel, we're playing with carbie cleaner, and we're about to kick the engine over. So there's going to be a bit of heat generated there. So we've got the old super cheap fire blanket out, and we've also got Brad to pop in. He's going to have the fire extinguisher at the ready when we kick this over. We're not expecting any problems, but it pays to be safe.
Listen, mate, I'll give you $10 to let it burn, all right?
All right. Make it happen.
Rightio.
Yep.
Still spraying?
Yep.
Must be running on the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that might work.
Well, it seems to be idling a lot better now. This stuff is pretty acidic and it's designed to clean up all the gummed up areas in that carbie. So fingers crossed we haven't had to actually pull the carbies apart and clean them right up, because this seems to have done the job, but we'll see. It's an old truck.
Those hills had turned out pretty slippery after rain, so despite Paul's best efforts, it was out with a worn winch. Make sure you always use a winch dampener like this one in any winching operation.
Cowmung Fire Trail here, which is what we're on at the moment, is a fantastic little track. Turnoff is about roughly 12 kilometres along the road to Canangra Walls, and it's all signposted and everything, so you won't have too much trouble finding it. A couple of river crossings that we've been through, and it's a really nice track, fairly steep, but nothing to worry about for first timers in my books, although if it has been raining, you know, you might need to take a few extra precautions. Bring along a hand winch just in case.
So now we're on our way towards the Lime Burners Trail.
What's happened here?
I'm trying to break the Rangie, mate, but I can't. No, one of these, this little plastic splash plate has just come adrift. No worries, that doesn't really protect anything. It's just been scraping on the tyre a little bit, so I thought I'd rip it off myself, but I think I'm going to need a spanner. These Rangies, they're too tough.
I had that fixed pretty quickly, and the weather had been kind to us until, well, bucketfuls of hail exploded from the sky. This is mountain country, folks.
You can probably see that the brake lights are on here. Car's switched off, it's not an accessory or anything else. That's because the brakes have gone that bad in the MQ that I'm going to have to do something about it. On the last hill it was a 3 pump and just to get a little bit of brakes, and that's before she rolled backwards. So we're going to hook in and do a bit of brake bleeding and see if that sorts some of the problem. Let's see what happens. Oh, geez, I've never worn a beanie so many hours in a row. I had it on all last night, hey?
Keeps your knits warm, mate.
Mate, I think I'm incubating them. This is a Visi bleed, one-man bleeder. But that's all right because I got my bleeding mate here, so I can actually observe how this works, which is good. I've never used one before. Essentially, when you're bleeding brakes, the whole idea is to get the air out of the system. There's a nipple behind each brake hub at the rear, caliper at the front, and when the brake pedal is pushed, it should squirt the fluid straight through once you've loosened it up. Let's see what happens and see if the Visi bleed that we picked up from Super Cheap works, because if it does, I'm going to get one. Okay, when you're ready, Pat, hang on. Right on. Okay, give it a push. Oh, there's lots of air in there. Hang on, mate. Okay, just push it down and hold it. Okay, beauty. The normal thing to do is to tighten it up with the pedal down to the floor. So presumably that stays the same with the Visi bleed setup. Okay, well that's one wheel done. Big trick when you're bleeding brakes, get the bonnet up, keep an eye on the master cylinder level, because if it drops below the feeding hole at the bottom, then you're going to get a lot more air in the system than you'll ever get out. I might do that right now. Just make sure you clean around the rim before you stick brake fluid in, so that you don't go washing great big hunks of dirt in. Kind of handy trick. That hasn't gone down too much just on one wheel, but it has gone down. Well, done all 4. I'm really impressed with this Visi bleed thing. It works quite well. You could see the air that was coming out of the system. Most of the air came out of the front, a little bit out of the back. Pedals back up to roughly where it should be. Still a bit spongy. I don't anticipate the brakes are going to be like new. The rotors and the pads and whatnot, they're all well and truly on their way out. But by crikey, this thing goes so well. Who needs to stop it?
We've got some deep water crossings coming up later in the trip, so we're going to jerry up a very, very basic snorkel. Probably not the sort of thing that you'd want to do to your own vehicle, but hey, these things cost $2 and we want to make sure that they don't ingest water, because that could kill an old dunger like this. So with Camilla, it's very, very simple, because it's already got this long air intake out here, which I think someone's already jerried up the previous owner. So it's very simple. What we're going to do is swing that around to vertical. I've found a lump of wood in the bush that we can set her up on, and I'll cable tie that down. And we ducked into the plumbing supply shop before, and we're going to stick a little bit of a head on it. So we've got ourselves a snorkel, folks. Let's go.
Gee, I wonder if we'll ever get the bonnet open again. I suppose it doesn't matter really, does it?
I faced the head of the snorkel backwards, because if it rained I didn't want to suck in a belly full of water. Professional snorkels have built-in drain outlets.
Pat had it pretty easy, really, because he had a tube he could just pluck off and send through the roof, even if the steel was very thick. My problem here is the nature of the carburettor on the Patrol. So what I'm going to do, I've taken the air filter off, and the intention here is to use the bucket over the top there as a bit of a seal, screw that on, bung a pipe in it, and there's my snorkel top out the roof. Resistance. Whoa, well it took a bit to get it going after we put the snorkel on. That's more to do with the fact that it's been running lean all the way through the trip. Without the air filter it's leaner again, and of course this thing doesn't have a choke. But that start you bastard worked, didn't it? She's a goer. Let's go and get it drenched and see what happens.
We continued our trek across the mountains until we hit the southern highlands. Here we popped down into River Island Nature Retreat. It's what they call a skinny dipping property, but there were no bare bums when we were there, probably too cold. Nope, there were just thousands of acres of awesome four-wheel drive tracks. Colin Sell, the owner of the property, is a mad keen four-wheel driver, and the property is so good it's even hosted the Nissan trials and plenty of four-wheel drive driver training courses. We thought we'd better give the Forbies a bath to get them ready for a magazine photo shoot. Camilla was first to go through, and I couldn't get that damn rear wiper to stop. The Adventure Camper trailer did a great job through here though, not taking in a drop of water.
Stop and let them drain out, mate.
It was all good until Ruthie and the bush pig got hung up on a rock. The things we do to help a mate. Why is it I always end up in me undies? Didn't you, mate?
Hey! Hey, there's no BB cans in there. We're doing something wrong. Oh! When I got it hung up on that boulder in the creek there, showing off for Mr. Allen, I bashed the transmission protection plate, which is quite a heavy thing on the old MQ, up against the handbrake drum that's at the back of the transmission. And boy, is it making some noises. It's lathing itself away. What I'm doing, I've got the hydraulic jack between the floor using a whole bunch of plywood sheets that fortunately Paul had in his camper van. Gee, that camper trailer is coming in handy for everything. I've got the ply up against the floor, so there's more ply under the floor than there is foot of the jack. That's important, otherwise it'll go straight through the roof. And I'm just jacking away to push that plate back down. You could take the plate off, straighten it and put it back under there, but you'd never get those holes aligned. Far better just to do it in the car, get it sorted and get going. I'll just go and finish this off. I've got some nuts here, Pat, and I reckon there's a couple of nuts here. This whole thing is just going from sort of dumb to supremely stupid, if you ask me. It was good fun.
I won't disagree with you there, mate. I won't at all.
Yeah, but what's the plan here? I mean, with the mud pit?
Tug of war, mate. Specially selected, specially groomed track we've got here for a tug of war.
What? This heavy great thing against this beautifully nimble Nissan.
Lightweight aluminium panels, mate. I think you've got the advantage. You've got the mud terrain tyres.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you don't win this, I guess, well, we are at a nudie resort, so I think you might have to do a naked runner up and down here about 10 times.
Mate, it's really cold, if you know what I'm saying. And talking about tiny little things, this thing's got a tiny little recovery hook on the back. I don't think it's good enough for that kind of stuff. It'll either pull the arse out of this one or pull the backside off yours.
Okay, mate, fair enough, but you're not getting out of it that easily.
Is that right? Oh. Go see, Patrol power. I never thought I'd say it. Did the job but, didn't it? Might be those mud tyres too, but shh, don't say anything.
I think you got very lucky on that last little tug of war there, Ruthie. Very lucky.
There's no luck in it, mate. The mighty 2.8 has got big piston power, I think.
Well, now, ladies and gents, we have a game of off-road chases. You know how you used to play chases when you were a kid? Well, that's what we're going to do now on a nice soft little sand track.
The rules are pretty simple. We start on other sides of the track, and the winner's the one who catches the other guy first. Now, given that you got more doors, more capacity, more of everything than I have...
More class, yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. I still anticipate gunning you on this, but we'll see what happens. Oh boy, now I know why everyone's moving to Queensland, mate. Fair income. This is just wonderful, this New South Wales place.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Let's get into it. Good fun, eh?
It was, mate, it was. So how does it feel? The dado's, I think, back on the bottom. Tally sheet, what do you reckon?
Mate, there was times there when it cut into 2 cylinders. Most of the time it was going around on 1. Anyway, you know, like, I know you won the competition, okay? I'll give you that. Camilla won. But look at the damage you've done. Hey,
Yes,
look at that front bumper.
It's not pretty, mate. It's the velocity of that 3.5, you know. It launches the car into things.
I reckon if we look underneath this, we're going to find the chassis is corrugated all the way back. Meanwhile, the mighty Patrol, not a problem. Well, barely a problem. Don't know whether I'll get the tailgate open tonight. You never know. Well, let's go and find something really silly to do. What else have we got to do?
We do have a water crossing that our photographer, Mr. Ellum, has lined up for us, and he says it's not that deep.
All right.
Whether you believe a photographer is...
That's up to the neck Ellum, who's about 6'7".
That's
yeah,
right.
beauty.
That's right.
Great.
Now while the ARB Ute did it easily, the much lighter old bangers could have some problems. Ruthie drew the short straw to go through first. Oh no, and he's stuck again.
It died! Can you believe it? Oh, Patrol. My Toyota would have done that easy.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. Camilla, she's done it, Ruthie.
Mate, Camilla likes to be submerged. She likes it
She's
wet.
slightly steaming now.
Actually, judging by the pictures, Pat, I think the water's gone down a bit since he went through.
Well, 2 minutes after we're through that creek, getting stuck in it, I got it running again. And how? Well, it was easy. I'd already WD-40'd everything. I'd sealed up the distributor. I couldn't understand why it died. You know what happened? The force of the water coming up from underneath pulled out the high tension lead to the coil. The high tension lead to the coil is about 2 feet long on this thing, and it just dragged it out of the top of the distributor cap. So there you go, there's a lesson for an old player like me. In future, I'm going to tape up that too.
Oh dear, she's been running so beautifully, young Camilla, or old Camilla maybe, but the throttle problem has reared its head again. It's settled down for the last couple of days, but we were just driving through Mittagong doing a bit of a highway stretch, and she just wanted to rev and rev and rev. I had to bring it in at about 5th gear with the brakes on, and I can tell you the brakes were fading pretty badly by the time I got here. So looks like now we've just got to start undoing these carby bolts and screws and check out what's in there. The guess from my perspective is that it's just filthy in there and it hasn't been cleaned, so things like the needle inside the carby are sticking now, so let's see what's inside. Ah, beauty. Got it. Happiness is. Bit of gunk in there. Let's see, that's only half the story. Yes. There we go. There's our problem. That's all scored and got a whole lot of junk all over it. But this carby cleaner's good stuff. Have a look at this. Let's see what it does. Look at that. Just blows it off. So now that we have got it all back together, we just need to pop a little bit of oil down the barrel to lubricate things, because that's what it says in the handbook. And then we'll kick her over, see how we go. Oh, beautiful. First go and idling like a champion.
Well, just back on the freeway, heading up to the next section, and time out for a bit of thought, I suppose, about these old jiggers. Look, I love old cars, as you probably realise by now. I mean, I own enough of them, but it's really got to be said that, you know, both these trucks, we're having a lot more fun with our old trucks than we ever do when we come testing with the new ones.
Camilla's purring away quite nicely up the highway now. We lost our power steering yesterday though in the sand, but other than some heavy steering like the MQ, she's travelling along pretty well.
In the case of the Patrol, it's actually got better since we've done this test. I know that sounds a bit weird. I'm sitting here on a plastic sheet hoping the water won't come rushing through the seat.
It's really great to be driving a vehicle that you really have to look after and think about driving. New vehicles, it's just point and shoot. They're so reliable, you know, they just do everything that's asked of them. But these vehicles enrichen the whole experience in my books, and they make it a whole lot more fun. Of course, if you've only got about 4 weeks a year to do your big four-wheel drive trip, then you might want to get something a little bit more reliable. Look at spending around about 10 or 15 grand and then whopping a whole heap of four-wheel drive accessories onto your truck to make your trip a lot more enjoyable.
From the Southern Highlands, we trekked our way northwards towards Newcastle and the mighty Stockton beach. We stopped a while for a photo op at the MV Cygna shipwreck. The 30,000-tonne Cygna ran aground in 1974 and has been weathering the elements ever since.
Just for a bit of fun, we're going to try some standing starts up these steep Stockton sandhills.
On your marks, get set, go! Get set, go! On your marks, this is Camilla's Revenge. Get set, go! Hey Ruthie, what are you doing flogging my battery, mate?
Mate, I just need to do a bit of welding on the Datsun before the exhaust pipe falls off. You don't mind. Anyway, look, you know, it's only Camilla. Hey, you don't need it anyway. Look, you've got a hole in your radiator, mate.
Mate, I'll fix that in about 2 minutes flat, okay? And you can take the battery, just make sure you bring it back, alright?
Oh, okay then, Pat. Well, you go and clog up Camilla's heating system then.
I will, mate, I will. I think I actually punctured the radiator first of all when I hit Ruthie up the bum, but when we've been punching around these sand dunes, the pressure in the radiator's bumped up a fair bit, so it's a pretty easy fix though. I've got this gas tank and radiator repair kit. Break off the amount that you use. I've only got a bit of a pinprick hole in Camilla. Then you need to really knead it together well for quite a few minutes, you know, just make sure that it all becomes a standardized color, because it's got sort of a whitey looking thing in the middle, and it's black on the outside. So once it all becomes grey, that's when you need to make it into a cone shape, and you put the end of the cone into the hole, and you only need to leave it for a few minutes and she sets like steel.
Oh, well, that's got that sorted. It's just had a broken exhaust mount. We've just dabbed it back on with some weld. Bush welding, we've done all this before. You know it, it's pretty easy. I borrowed the battery out of Camilla. I've hooked them up because we only had one set of jumper leads, so I've hooked them up with a spare shackle. It doesn't matter what it is, the heavier the better, obviously, using a couple of hose clamps. Now, the way to go with this is negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay, what that means is you're using 24 volts and not 12. And just make sure that you've already pulled the battery out of the vehicle, otherwise that can cause a few complications. You can use this trick to weld just about anything, and if you've got an angle grinder you can even fix axles with it.
Well, by this stage, Camilla is ahead by a nose. She scored 3 wins while Ruthie has scored 2. A win here for Camilla will give her the trophy. A loss, and it's a draw, because this is the last stage, folks. This is a forward and reverse slalom, but you're not allowed to hit the witches' hats.
power steering right about now. I think I knocked one over. Well, Ruthie, I thought I had you there, mate, but we've ended up at 3 apiece.
It's amazing, isn't it? You know, but I think the real winner is everybody who can afford $2,000 for a four-wheel drive. These things are fantastic, aren't
We've
they?
had a blast, haven't we? I mean, more fun than you can have in a test car, which we test quite a bit.
Well, you always feel bad taking them back with dents, but I mean, these things, you know, it's been terrific. The amazing thing is, though, that we haven't managed to kill either of them, hey?
No, it's still going.
Yeah.
Plenty of little niggly problems and stuff,
Yeah.
but nothing you can't fix.
A couple of days in the workshop and you'd be back for another 10 years with both of these old girls. They're great stuff. And it's great that it's a draw, you know, I like that. That's terrific.
Yeah, it is. I guess, you know, until the next round, Ruthie, I'll probably just keep this safe at my place.
Hey?
Okay, you know,
Hey?
I'll catch you around next
Hey,
time.
hang on, half of that's mine. Hey, wait on. What do you think you're
Yeah, no,
doing?
it's left.
Hey, this way. Oh. G'day! Welcome to Ruthie's Ruthless Tales. Go on, grab a slice of fair dinkum, Australia. Get your dose of Ruthie and put a smile on your dial.